There's only one thing you need to know about the new Assassin's Creed movie, and that's that it paid tribute to the game franchise's mystery and cryptic intrigue by cleverly hiding an accurate description of what the film is solely in the title. Yeah, it's true, and I'm about to crack the code. Oh, Jesus wept. This is such a puzzle. Okay, I think I got this. So, there's 3 major games in the Ezio collection, the most recent console release in the franchise, so we got the number 3. Now, the third letter of the alphabet is A, B, C, yeah? Stick with me. So, if we remove the C, we get Assassin's Read, which sounds like Assassin's Read, but we know they don't read because I always skip the lore exposition dumps in those games, so if we drop the read, we're left with just Assassins. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. I'm stumped. Wait, I got it. In 1511, remnants of the first civilization technology were found beneath the Acropolis in Greece, specifically its capital Athens. Now what does Athens sound like? That's right, Assens. So we drop the Assens, the C, the read, and we're left with ass. This movie is ass. And if you think that joke was immature, then boy, you should see how this film handles its dialogue. Ho ho, we got a real bad one here, ladies and gents. Here's a movie that's part try-hard mid-90s sci-fi and part early 2000s rubbish adventure flick. Like Lawnmower Man 2 and The Scorpion King had an ugly baby and didn't love it. This was my New Year's Day. This came out, at least over here, on New Year's Day. And that's kind of brave, really, when you think about it. You know, Ubisoft were really ambitious. They looked at the bar set by last year, they looked at that microscopic gap between it and the ground and said, you know what? I think we can go lower. And so they did, getting in their nomination for Worst Film of 2017 as early as possible. And now here we have the latest failed attempt at the video game movie, a medium which at this point I'm almost certain will just never work, and I've already explained why this is in my Hitman review, so I'll just point you that way if you want my thoughts on the format. But having said that, I would have been overjoyed to be proven wrong, so I went into Assassin's Creed cautiously optimistic. And wow, have I never been this sad to be right. Holy shit, this film is awful. Like, almost fascinatingly so. It's actually incredible that almost 100% of the film is exposition, and yet somehow it still doesn't really make all that much sense. Let me try and explain it. And listen, I don't normally do this, but I'm just going to spoil most of this shit if you really are bothered about seeing it through fresh eyes. But don't worry, because the movie sort of spoils itself anyway by not having a plot worth caring about, and quite frankly, I wish somebody had warned me about the mundanity of it all. So really, I'm doing you a favour. So the story follows Michael Fassbender's character, who's so forgettable I already can't remember his name, so I'm just going to call him Barry. And Barry comes home one day to find his dad is in really silly looking cult robes and has killed his mom for reasons. Like, it turns out later they were both going to get captured by this evil Abstergo organization, but then his dad just gets captured anyway, so I don't see why the mom had to die. Whatever though, forget that. The movie practically does anyway, since this is almost entirely irrelevant to the plot at large. Let's go back and talk Barry. So Barry goes on the run and then turns up in prison with a death sentence later for killing a pimp who we never meet and we never find out why he killed him. I guess because he's a pimp? But why not kill all the pimps on that logic? Why stop at one? Why not have just a fucking mountain of dead pimps in your back garden? Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta stop for a second. I can't get over this. What a bizarrely precise crime of killed one pimp. Just the one, then the pimp killing itch was kinda scratched. Why a pimp? Why not a murderer or a paedophile? It's just as cheap, but it sounds less dumb. Like, how did the writing team pitch this to each other? Imagine the dialogue that took place. Right, lads, so got this idea. Here is out. Barry's in prison on death row. Good. Smashing. We need him there at this point in the plot. Ah, wait. Why is he in prison though? I don't know. He stole some chips. That probably wouldn't put him on death row. Okay. Murder then. Don't know. He's the hero. We should make him likable. He only killed bad people? What bad people? I don't know. A pimp? How many pimps? Just the one, really. Huh. Yeah. I could like a guy who killed a pimp. Maybe even 2. 3's pushing it though. At that point you're just a murderer. Yeah, go with a solo pimp slaying. I think you're onto a winner there. Anyway, mystery off-screen pimp bashing aside, after being put to eternal slumber, Barry wakes up to find out he wasn't really killed, but was instead taken to a secret evil company known as Abstergo, where he's condemned to a fate worse than death. Exposition. He's now doomed to have many long, boring walks down hallways and be told the entire plot of the movie by a character played by Marion Cotillard, whose name I also can't remember, so I'm just going to call her Marion Cotillard. So Marion explains to us many things. Oh, she just won't stop explaining things, will she? So apparently Barry has assassin blood in him, and she's built a big machine that can let him live his past lives. And they're going to have Barry go in it so that past Barry can tell them where an apple is, because they researched through history and found out that the last person to have seen this super special apple was past Barry. And they found present Barry through past Barry's matching DNA. Oh, this is really silly, isn't it? When I was playing the games, this seemed fine, but now I'm seeing it presented as a movie. It's kinda dumb as fuck. Anyway, not content with being stupid enough already, Marion explains that they need the apple to use its science to cure violence. What? No, I'm sorry, I gotta stop again. What does that even mean? How would that even work? Are they gonna make like an injection that turns punches into cuddles? Is everyone going to take a pill in the morning that just puts them in a good mood? Because we kind of already got that. Is the apple going to like open up into some kind of omnipotent god being who will watch over the world, and every time someone goes to commit a violent act will just manifest itself as a young bloke that steps in and says, nah mate, leave it mate. He's not worth it, man. He's not worth it. That is an unfathomably dumb concept. Cure violence. I mean, really. And before anyone points out that she's a Templar, which are the bad dudes, and their real plan is to eliminate everyone's free will so they can rule without dispute, you should know that A, that's equally dumb, it's so generically evil that every Templar should have came with a compulsory dastardly mustache to go with their villainous plan, and B, you gotta remember, she isn't in on this plan. Like, eventually the Templars find the apple and her evil Templar dad is all like, now I can fucking ruin everything, and she's all heartbroken and like, you lied to me? What? He lied to you? You mean they were never going to cure violence? Why, we've been duped. We've been bamboozled. How could you possibly think that's what the plan ever was, you silly sausage? It's the fucking dumbest thing. I mean, Jesus, just stop and think about it for one moment. Like, is that even really something you want to cure? You're a scientist. You're educated. Sure, cure violence sounds great on paper, but you know, cure violence and lions die out. That's fucking bad shit. They can't just up and eat lettuce now instead of zebras, can they? You put loads of people out of jobs who work in like creative violence. You lose something that's driven a lot of social change and gave people a voice when there was no other option. You lose a shit ton of rap lyrics. Straight Outta Compton ain't gonna get airplay anymore, eh? Hope you weren't a fan of NWA, Marion, cause they're gone. You didn't think of that, did you? TV shows? Dead. No violence means no thrones. That's a dumb move. We haven't seen season 7 yet, you dafty. Fuck's sake. I wouldn't be so bothered if the movie didn't think it was so profound. Like, it's a dumb action video game flick about assassins in Spain and evil sci-fi companies. We're hardly talking Philip K. Dick levels of philosophy here, but the movie seems to think it's this generation's Matrix. It thinks it's about everything, when really, it's about nothing. You could have had something decent here. A Pirates of the Caribbean style adventure through amazing landmarks with a mystery sci-fi twist, but nah. They treat every single sentence of this movie like it's more serious than the AIDS virus. It tries so hard to be smart. Like, this is going to sound weird because it is a movie, but every character in this talks like they are in a movie. What I mean by that is that every line is dripping with over-dramatic punchiness. There's not a single natural sentence in the whole thing. They're all constantly smirking at the world around them like they've figured it all out and saying intelligent and quotable things like, it's 2016, no one cares about freedom, and mankind seems intent on destroying itself. It even throws in the Bhagavad Gita line of, now I am become death, destroyer of worlds, said without the slightest hint of self-awareness or irony. Jesus wept. Who let the 5-year-old in the school philosophy cupboard? What is this? You don't get to say these lines. You aren't saying anything clever, and even if you were, you haven't earned it. Not in a movie which features a scene where the protagonist breaks a giant claw VR machine by doing a super cool, awesome mega jump. It's not even a faithful adaptation, really. I mean, I enjoy the games, they get a lot of shtick, and yeah, they are repetitive and some are worse than others, but I'll put my hands up and straight up admit I love 2. And I know it's not cool these days to say you like Assassin's Creed, but I honestly think as a series it's got a lot going for it. But the bits that worked, at least for me, were the bits in the past. I hated the modern day shit. It basically felt like a really long loading screen, and the games at least knew to keep them to a minimum. Like, the bits people loved in the gameplay was traversing and fighting through the amazing depictions of open worlds filled with well-researched architecture and iconic sites and historical figures. That's why the bulk of them was set in these past segments, only using the modern day stuff as small intervals to break up massive stints of playing as the ancestors. Not in the movie though. No. Here we'll get a maybe 70-30 split in favour of walking through boring grey and white hallways and staring at computer screens, and even when we do go back to the past, all of it's covered in this ugly haze, like the Spanish Inquisition took place inside of a colour run that ran out of paints other than orange, and the action, which is the main driving force for these sequences, is only okay, like just functional at best. And the characters in the past? I know nothing about them. I have no reason to like the protagonists there, and I have no reason to dislike the villains. They aren't characters. They simply aren't. They're avatars to push the quote-unquote plot forward. Why? Like, I get these people represent video game avatars, which are mostly bland so players can self-insert onto them, but it's not like the games didn't manage to squeeze a bit of roguish charm out of Ezio. Edward Kenway from Black Flag had a bit of drive and desire. But these characters are so lifeless, they make the dull protagonist of the first game, Altair, look like a sudden stand-up comedian in comparison. Basically, the whole thing sucks. The characters are shit, film dialogue spouting edgelords in the present day, and cardboard plot devices in the past. The plot's messy, bogged down in crappy, overly complex lore, and delivered through painful exposition. It never manages to capture any of the charm the better games or even some of the highs of the worst ones had, and it's a horrible blemish on the otherwise near impeccable careers of both Justin Kurzel and Michael Fassbender. I could go on and on about why it doesn't work, but I'd just be picking out more standard movie flaws, and I think you've done about all you need to there when you point out the messy plot, bland characters, and boring action. One thing I do want to make a point of though, because it's interesting, specifically relates to adapting from a lore-heavy video game series. I think there's a really compelling discussion to be had around formats here that no video game movie before this has kind of had a chance to raise yet. You remember before when I said that when I was playing the game, certain plot points felt fine, but when presented with a character saying them in a movie, it comes across silly? I think that it's sort of intriguing because, yeah, partly it is due to poor execution on the film's part. Having Marion just say a bunch of shit isn't a compelling way to deliver information by any means. But also, I think I would argue it's just not possible to translate some of this through the formats. I would suggest, in fact, that the overly complex lore and exposition actually does work in the games because the player always makes the choice to discover it. You don't have to read anything you don't want to. Extra puzzles that reveal secrets about the world's history are optional. The world is explored as you see fit. And think about it, that shit's only interesting in the games because it's a world you are occupying. With a video game, you self-insert into a universe and you live in it, so it's only natural you'd be intrigued by its history and setting in the same way that news is compelling in everyday life. Like, if you'd allow me an allegory, the news is basically real-world equivalent of exposition, right? It's an information breakdown that says, this happened, then this happened, and here's why. Just like exposition, yeah? Except we're interested in the news, and we'll keep up with it every day because it's relevant, because it directly concerns us, and the place we live in. So being told lore when you're playing Assassin's Creed is like hearing news in your local town about people and places you know. Sort of a, oh shit, Stacy slept with Gary? Holy fuck, didn't see that coming. Being told lore when you're watching Assassin's Creed is like hearing news someone else is living that means absolutely nothing to you. More like a, oh shit, Stacy slept with Gary? I don't know who those people are. I hope that makes sense because I think I'm kind of onto something there. Yeah, there's no punchline to that one. I just thought it was worth talking about. You might have noticed sometimes I actually put on those geeky glasses that the channel's named after and just analyse media straight up. Anyways, I've always been fascinated by adaptation and how different formats work, and I've got a real interest in specifically video game movies, as evidenced by the massive video podcast series me and my friend Jamie do on them. If anyone wants to check that out, it's on the channel. Regardless though, as much as I can explain why certain flaws are present in this movie, it doesn't make it worth watching. It hasn't broken the video game adaptation curse, and I still, for the life of me, can't get over. Why a pimp?